The plate shattered against the wall before Folasade even realized she had thrown it. "You think I'm a fool, Chibueke?" she screamed, her chest rising and falling like she'd been running for her life. "You think I don't see how you've changed?" Chibueke froze in the doorway of their bedroom, his tie still loose around his neck, his briefcase slipping from his fingers. "Fola, calm down. What is wrong with you?" "What is wrong with me?" She laughed, but it wasn't a laugh of joy. It was the laugh of a woman standing at the edge of something she couldn't yet name. "I should be asking you that question. 8 years, Chibueke. 8 years I have given you, and you cannot even look me in the eye anymore." He said nothing. That silence, that was the loudest thing in the room. If you're just joining us, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and tap like, because this story is about to take you somewhere you won't see coming. And drop a comment letting me know, have you ever felt like the person sleeping beside you had already left, even though their body was still there? 3 weeks earlier, none of this had started this way. It had started quietly. That was the thing about the end of a marriage. It rarely announced itself with shouting. It crept in through silences, through phones turned face down on the table, through a man who used to reach for his wife's hand in his sleep and now slept facing the wall. Folasade Adeyinka had built her life around 2 things: her marriage to Chibueke Eze and her growing interior design business, Adeyinka Interiors. She had told herself for months that the distance she felt was just stress. His new contracts at the logistics farm, the pressure of providing, the natural rhythm of 2 people who had been together long enough to stop performing for each other. But that night, 3 weeks before the plate shattered, she had gone into his study to drop off a folder he forgot, and his laptop had been open. Divorce papers. Her name typed clearly at the top, dated 5 weeks earlier. She had stood there in the doorway of that study, her hand pressed against her mouth, feeling the floor tilt beneath her feet. He had not said a single word to her, not one. He had been planning to end her marriage in silence, like she was a contract he could quietly let lapse. "Chibueke," she whispered to the empty room, "what have you done?" She had not confronted him that night. Something in her, some quiet voice she didn't know she possessed, told her to wait, to watch, to gather herself before she gathered anything else. "I am not the kind of woman who begs," she told her best friend, Yemisi Bankole, 2 days later, sitting in Yemisi's car outside a fabric market in Yaba, her voice shaking despite her resolve. Yemisi turned to her, eyes sharp with concern. "Fola, are you telling me Chibueke has been planning to leave you and you are sitting here calm like this? I would have set that man's car on fire." "And then what?" Fola snapped, more harshly than she intended. "Then I lose everything, Yemisi. The house, the business contact he introduced me to. Everything. No, I will not burn down my own life because his guilt has made him a coward." "So what will you do?" Fola exhaled slowly, steadying her hands in her lap. "I will find out everything. Every account, every property, every lie. And when I am ready, I will speak. Not before." That had been the beginning of her transformation, though she did not yet know how deep it would go. For the next 2 weeks, Folashade became someone else. By day, she was the same wife who made his breakfast, who asked about his meetings, who laughed at his jokes even when they tasted like ash in her mouth. By night, she was a woman combing through bank statements she'd printed at a business center near her studio, cross-referencing numbers, dates, names she didn't recognize. "Sibanda Logistics Holdings," she muttered one night, staring at a transfer of 4 million naira. "Chibueke, who is Sibanda?" She found the second property next, a flat in Banana Island, purchased 11 months ago, paid for in cash. Her name was on nothing. It was during this search that she found the messages. Not on his phone, she wasn't reckless enough to risk that, but on the family iPad they shared, still logged into his email from months before, an old habit he'd forgotten to undo. The emails were between him and a woman named Halima Suleiman. One message read, "I can't keep living like this, Chibueke. You said you will tell her by December." December, 4 months ago. Fola sat on the bathroom floor that night with the iPad in her lap, and for the first time since this nightmare began, she let herself cry. Not loudly, not the way she had screamed at him with the plate, but quietly, the kind of crying that comes from somewhere ancient, somewhere that remembers being young and in love with a boy who used to write her poetry on receipts because he couldn't afford notebooks. She remembered their wedding day, the way Chibueke had held her face in both hands before the priest pronounced them husband and wife, and whispered, just for her, "I will never let you regret choosing me." She remembered the early years, the cramped flat in Surulere, the nights they ate garri with sugar because that was all they could afford, and somehow it tasted like a feast because they were together. She remembered him pulling her close in the kitchen once, the smell of fried plantain in the air, kissing her slowly, deliberately, like she was the only stable thing in a world that kept shifting under his feet. "That what had happened to us, Fola," he murmured against her lips. "I choose you. Every single day, I will choose you." That man felt like a stranger now, a ghost she had buried somewhere inside the man currently sleeping with his back turned to her. It was that memory, sharp and aching, that broke something loose in her the night the plate shattered. She had not planned to confront him yet. She had wanted more time, more evidence, more certainty. But when he came home that evening, smelling faintly of perfume that wasn't hers, humming under his breath like a man with no burdens, something inside Fola simply gave way. "Where were you tonight?" Fola asked, her voice deceptively calm as he set his briefcase down. "Work, Fola. Where else would I be?" "Work?" she repeated. "Is that what you call it now?" His face changed then, that flicker of guilt, quick as lightning, gone before he could hide it. "What does that mean?" And that was when the plate left her hand. Now, standing among the broken porcelain, Chibueke's eyes finally met hers, and for a moment, just a moment, she saw the boy who used to write her poetry on receipts. Then it was gone, replaced by something colder, more defensive. "You have lost your mind," he said quietly. "No," Fola said, and her voice had stopped shaking. "I have finally opened my eyes." She did not tell him what she knew. Not yet. She turned, walked into their bedroom and locked the door behind her, leaving him standing alone among the shattered pieces of a plate and the shattered pieces of a marriage he thought he could end without her noticing. If this story has already got your heart racing, smash that like button right now and comment below. Do you think Fola should have confronted him sooner, or was she right to wait and gather the truth first? Stay with me, because what happens next will show you exactly how a quiet woman becomes an unstoppable force. Morning came, and Folasade had not slept. She had spent the night sitting on the edge of the bathtub with the iPad in her lap, rereading the emails between her husband and Halima Suleiman until the words blurred into shapes she no longer recognized as language. By the time the sun rose over Lekki, she had made a decision. She will not scream, she will not break another plate. She would become something far more dangerous than an angry wife. She would become a prepared one. "Barrister Okonjo will see you at 11, Yemisi told her over the phone, her voice gentler than usual. "Fola, are you sure you want to do this alone? I can come with you." "I need to hear it for myself," Fola said. "If I bring you, I will spend the whole meeting watching your face instead of listening to the lawyer." Barrister Uche Okonjo's office sat on the 3rd floor of a modest building in Ikeja, lined with law books that looked older than Fola's marriage. He was a small, precise man with reading glasses perched low on his nose, and he listened to her entire story without interrupting once. The laptop, the Banana Island flat, the 4 million naira, Halima's name typed in black and white. When she finished, he removed his glasses slowly. "Mrs. Eze, I want you to understand something clearly. What you have described is not just infidelity, it is financial concealment within a marriage. Under Nigerian law, assets acquired during the marriage, regardless of whose name is on the paper, can be considered matrimonial property, especially where you can demonstrate direct or indirect contribution. Indirect contribution, Fola repeated. I never worked at his company. No, but did you raise his household? Did you entertain his clients? Did you sacrifice growth in your own business in the early years so he could build his? Fola's throat tightened. Yes, all of that. Then that is contribution, Mrs. Eze. The law does not only recognize the money that enters a bank account, it recognizes the years that built the life around that money. He leaned forward. Do not let him convince you that silence makes you weak or that patience makes you a fool. Gather everything. Bank statements, property documents, those emails, printed, not just on a device that can be wiped. Then we proceed from strength, not desperation. Fola left that office feeling for the first time in 3 weeks like the ground beneath her feet was solid again. But solid ground did not mean a quiet home. That evening, Chibuike came to her in the bedroom, his voice softer than it had been in months. Fola, can we talk? Properly this time, not shouting. She looked up from the book she wasn't really reading. Talk. He sat on the edge of the bed, putting distance between them that felt deliberate. I know things have not been right between us. I know I have been distant. He stopped, dragging a hand over his face. I don't know how to say this. Then let me help you, Fola said, her voice eerily calm. Are you trying to tell me about the Banana Island flat, or about Sibanda Logistics Holdings, or perhaps you want to tell me about Halima? The silence that followed was so complete that Fola could hear the air conditioner humming in the corner. How? Chibuike's voice cracked. How do you know about Halima? Does it matter how I know? Fola stood, walking toward him slowly, her arms folded. What matters, Chibuike, is that you knew for months. You sat across from me at dinner. You slept beside me in this bed. And every single day you let me believe we were building something when you had already decided to burn it down. It's not like that, he said, rising to his feet, desperation creeping into his voice. Fola, please, He hesitated, his eyes searching hers with something that looked almost like the boy from years ago. I still care about you. This is not as simple as you think. For one dangerous second, standing close enough to feel the warmth of him, Fola felt the old pull, the years of marriage, the memory of his lips against hers in that small Surulere kitchen, the comfort of a body she had slept beside for nearly a decade. He leaned in, and for half a breath she let him, her hand resting against his chest, the ghost of what they used to be flickering between them like a candle refusing to fully die. Then she felt his heartbeat, racing, guilty, the heartbeat of a man caught, not a man in love, and she stepped back sharply like she touched fire. No, she said, breathless. You do not get to do that. You do not get to remind me what we used to be and then go back to her tomorrow. Fola, care about me, she said, her voice rising now, the calm cracking at last. You care about your comfort, Chibuike. You wanted to live without consequence. You wanted a quiet exit while keeping your reputation clean and your money hidden. That is not love. That is cowardice wearing a wedding ring. If you've ever been close enough to someone to feel their heartbeat give away their lies, you understand exactly what Fola felt in that moment. Comment below and let us know where you're watching from tonight. And don't forget to like this video if you are starting to root for her the way we are. Chibuike's jaw tightened, the softness gone from his face as quickly as it had appeared. So what do you want, Fola? You want to destroy me? Is that it? You want to drag my name through mud, parade my business in court, embarrass me in front of my family? I want what is fair, she said. I built this life with you. I will not walk away from it with nothing while you walk into a new one with everything. This is not about fairness, he snapped. It is about pride, your pride. No, Chibuike, her voice dropped, low and steady, more frightening than any scream could have been. This is about respect, something you stopped giving me the day you decided I was disposable. He left the room without another word, the door slamming hard enough to rattle the picture frames in the hallway, frames that still held their wedding photos, photos that Fola had not found the strength to take down. 2 days later, his mother, Aduke, arrived unannounced. Aduke had never been warm toward Fola.
8 years of subtle comments about grandchildren that hadn't come, comparisons to other wives, comments about how a real wife manages her husband's moods. Fola braced herself for another lecture as Aduke settled into the living room chair like she owned it. But this time, Aduke's eyes were different, tired, almost apologetic. "Folasade," she said slowly, "I did not come to fight with you today." "Then why have you come, Mama?" Aduke was quiet for a long moment, her fingers twisting the edge of her wrapper. "Because I think it is time someone in this family told you the truth, even if it shames us." Fola's stomach turned cold. "What truth?" "I have known about Halima for almost a year." The room seemed to tilt around Folasade as the words landed. Confirmation, finally, from the one person who could have warned her and chose silence instead. Her hands curled into fists at her sides, and for the first time since this nightmare began, she felt something colder than heartbreak rising inside her. Clarity. This story is far from over. Comment Team Fola below if you believe she deserves every bit of justice coming her way. And stay tuned because what happens in the next will leave you speechless. "A year," Fola repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. "You have known for a year and you let me sit at your table, cook for your son, call you Mama while you carried this secret?" Aduke lowered her eyes. "I thought it was a phase. Men do this sometimes, Folasade. I thought he would come back to himself. And if he never did, would you have let me grow old in this house defending a man who already had one foot out the door?" "I am sorry," Aduke said, and for the first time in 8 years, Fola heard something genuine crack through her older woman's pride. Fola did not respond right away. She simply rose, walked to the window, and stared out at the estate where she had planted hibiscus flowers the year she got married. Flowers that had bloomed every season since, oblivious to the rot growing quietly inside the marriage they bordered. "Thank you for telling me the truth, Mama," she finally said, "even if it is late." By the following week, Fola had everything Barrister Okonjo asked for. Every statement, every document, every printed email, organized in a folder thick enough to feel like armor in her hands. When Chibuike finally agreed to mediation, he walked into the room expecting tears, expecting pleading, expecting the wife he thought he knew. Instead, he found a woman who set her folder on the table without a single tremor in her hand. "Mrs. Eze," the mediator began, "Mr. Eze has expressed a desire to finalize the dissolution of the marriage amicably. Do you have any objections to proceeding?" "None," Fola said calmly. "I only ask that we proceed with full transparency. All assets, all properties, all accounts." Chibuike shifted in his seat. "Fola, is this necessary? We don't need to make this ugly." "It is already ugly, Chibuike," she said, opening her folder. "I am simply choosing not to let it also be a lie." She laid out the documents one by one. The Banana Island flat, the Sibanda Logistics transfers, the printed emails between him and Halima. Each page landing on the table like a quiet verdict. Chibuike's lawyer glanced at his client, visibly caught off guard. Chibuike himself had gone pale, his earlier confidence dissolving into something smaller, more exposed. "Where did you get all this?" he asked quietly. "I learned eventually that paper does not lie, even when people do. You taught me that lesson yourself, Chibuike. I am only grateful for it now." The mediator cleared his throat, flipping through the documents. Given the evidence of undisclosed marital assets, Mrs. Eze's claim to equitable distribution is significantly strengthened. "Mr. Eze, I would advise reconsidering your current settlement offer." For the first time since this nightmare had begun 3 weeks ago, Fola watched her husband's certainty crumble in real time. Halima, who had not come to the mediation but had clearly been informed by phone, sent Chibuike 17 messages in the span of that single hour, according to the buzzing his phone refused to stop doing in his pocket. "You planned this," Chibuike muttered, more to himself than to her. "No," Fola corrected gently. "You planned the betrayal. I only planned the response." In the end, the settlement was fair. Fairer than Chibuike's lawyer had hoped. Fairer than Chibuike himself probably felt he deserved. Fola retained the family home, a portion of the Banana Island property's value, and compensation reflecting 8 years of unpaid contribution to a marriage and a business he had built partially on her sacrifices. Outside the mediator's office, Chibuike caught her arm gently as she walked to her car. "Fola, for what it's worth, I am sorry. I did love you. Somewhere along the way, I think I lost myself, and I let that loss cost us both." Fola studied him for a long moment. The man she had married, the man who had broken her, the man who, despite everything, once meant everything to her. "I believe you loved me once, Chibuike," she said softly. "But love that hides in laptops and bank accounts is not love. It is fear wearing love's clothes. I hope for your sake you learn the difference before you hurt someone else." She got into her car and did not look back. 3 months later, Adeyinka Interiors signed its largest contract yet, a luxury residential development in Victoria Island, 11 units, each requiring full interior design from concept to completion. Fola stood in the empty model unit, sunlight pouring through floor-to-ceiling windows, and allowed herself for the first time in months to simply breathe without bracing for the next blow. "You did it," Yemisi said, standing beside her, arms crossed with pride. "You really did it, Fola." Fola squeezed her friend's hand. "We did it, Yemisi. I couldn't have stayed sane through any of this without you." That weekend, Fola hosted her first workshop for young female entrepreneurs, a small gathering in her studio, 12 women sitting cross-legged on cushions, notebooks open, eager. She talked about contracts, about protecting yourself financially in business and in marriage, about the importance of documentation, of knowing your worth in numbers as well as in feeling. Many of you will face moments where someone tries to convince you that demanding clarity makes you difficult, she told them, her voice steady, stronger than it had been in years. Do not believe them. Clarity is not conflict. Clarity is protection. I learned that the hardest way possible, and I am still standing because of it. After the workshop ended and the last woman left with her notebook full of new resolve, Fola walked through her studio alone, fingers trailing over fabric samples, paint swatches, the life she had built with her own hands, a life that this time belonged entirely to her. Aduke had called the week before, asking if she could visit sometime, not as her former mother-in-law, but simply as a woman who admired who Fola had become. Fola had said yes. Some bridges, even cracked ones, were worth walking across carefully. She thought, standing in that sunlit studio, about the woman she had been the night that plate shattered against the wall. Terrified, blindsided, drowning in betrayal she didn't see coming. And she thought about the woman she was now, steady, clear-eyed, building something that no one could quietly take from her in the dark. Truth, she had learned, was always calmer than emotion, and clarity once earned could never again be stolen. If Fola's strength moved you even a little tonight, make sure you smash that subscribe button so you never miss another story like this one, and drop a like before you go. And before you leave, tell us in the comments exactly where you are watching from tonight. We read every single one. Thank you for staying till the end, and we'll see you in the next story.